Find a comfortable position now, whether you're lying down or curled up somewhere warm. Let your body settle into the surface beneath you and allow your eyes to gently close. Take a slow breath in and let it go. In and out. There's nowhere you need to be right now. Nothing you need to do. This moment belongs only to you. Let your shoulders soften. Feel the weight of the day beginning to lift from your jaw, from your hands, from the space behind your eyes. With each breath, you're drifting a little further from the noise of the world. Breathe in and breathe out. Imagine for a moment that the sky above you is deep and dark and full of stars. Ancient stars, older than any map or name, quietly watching over a world that has been turning for 10,000 years. You are safe here. You are held. And tonight, you are invited to travel. Welcome to Moonlit Dynasty, a collection of ancient stories from the heart of China. Tales of gods and heroes, of love and sacrifice, of the endless turning of the seasons. Stories that have been whispered for generations, carried by the wind across mountains and rivers, from the mouths of grandmothers to the ears of sleeping children. If these stories carry you gently to sleep, a subscription means the world to us and ensures the next story finds its way to you. Tonight, let one of those stories find you. Settle in, close your eyes, and let the old world carry you gently into the dark and into sleep. The cave of Yuquan Zhenren was set high on a mountain whose name had been forgotten by mortals and remembered only by clouds. To reach it, one followed a stream uphill until the stream became mist, and the mist became silence, and the silence became a doorway in the rock, where an old man sat waiting as though he had been waiting for centuries, which perhaps he had. Yang Jian arrived at dusk, his sandals worn through, his shoulders squared in the way of young men who have decided they are no longer afraid of anything. He bowed. The old immortal looked at him for a long while, taking in the young face, the three eyes, two open and bright, one a faint vertical mark on the forehead, sleeping, and the quiet fury that lived behind all three. "Come in," Yuquan Zhenren said. "Sit." Yang Jian sat. He waited to be taught. He waited a long time. The first night passed in silence. The second night also. On the third morning, when Yang Jian could no longer bear the stillness, he asked very respectfully when his training would begin. "It has begun," said the old man. "What am I learning, master?" "To sit, to listen." "Listen to what?" Yuquan Zhenren smiled, a small smile, the kind that belongs to people who have stopped being in a hurry about anything. "Listen to the water. The cave drips. Can you hear it?" Yang Jian could hear it. A small, patient sound, somewhere deeper in the cave, where the mountain's old throat carried water down toward roots no one had ever seen. Plink, plink, plink. He had heard it the whole time and not noticed. "Good," said the old man. "That is your lesson for today." Yang Jian almost laughed. Then he almost wept. Then he sat very still and listened to the dripping water and tried to understand what he had walked across half a kingdom to learn. The days became weeks. The weeks became a season, and the season became a year. Spring came to the mountain in slow, careful steps. Plum blossoms opened on a branch outside the cave mouth. white and trembling, and Yang Jian was told to listen to them. He sat for a whole afternoon listening to plum blossoms. He heard nothing. Then he heard the soft tick of petals letting go of their own weight, and the wind underneath them, and the bees who came too early and would not survive the next frost. Summer came, and Yang Jian was told to listen to the pine trees. He sat beneath them. The wind moved through the needles, and the sound was not one sound, but 1,000 small ones layered, each branch with its own voice, each needle a tiny tongue. He had walked under pines his entire life and never heard them. Autumn came, and he was told to listen to his own heartbeat. This was the hardest, to listen to the body that had carried his anger for so long, that had run toward the mountain where his mother was sealed and beat its fists against stone. To sit and simply hear it, neither commanding nor blaming, was a thing he did not know how to do. He sat for many nights. Eventually he heard it, a steady drum, slow as a temple bell, older than his anger and quieter than his grief. Winter came, and the snow fell, and the cave became a small, warm pocket inside a white world. Yang Jian asked, one night, very quietly, "Master, when will I learn to fight?" Yuquan Zhenren did not look up from his tea. "You already know how to fight," he said. "That is the problem." Yang Jian did not answer. He sat and he listened, and somewhere in the dark of the cave, the water dripped, and the pine sighed, and his heart kept its slow, patient time. The second winter on the mountain was deeper than the first. Snow came in long, slow falls that seemed to muffle the world itself, and Yang Jian, sitting at the mouth of the cave, watched it gather on the pine branches until they bent, then released their burden with a soft, sudden sigh, and stood up again. He had begun, by then, to understand a little about waiting. He had not been told this. Yuquan Zhenren never told him things directly. Instead, the old immortal would say something in passing, a remark about the way frost forms on a leaf, or how a stone in a stream is shaped not by force, but by the river's long patience. And Yang Jian would sit with it for days, turning it the way a stream turns a stone, until something inside him became smoother. In the mornings, they swept the cave together. Yuquan Zhenren swept very slowly. Yang Jian had once swept very quickly, finishing in a few clean strokes, eager to be done. Now he swept slowly, too. He had discovered, to his surprise, that sweeping was a kind of listening. The broom against the stone made a small, dry whisper, and if one swept attentively, one could hear the cave itself responding, the way each corner had its own echo, the way certain stones gave back a higher note than others, the way dust gathered in the places where the air did not quite reach. In the afternoons, they gathered firewood. Yuquan Zhenren took only the branches that had already fallen. He would not break a living thing for warmth. He walked through the snow with the careful tread of someone who had walked the same paths for hundreds of years and knew them the way a man knows his own hands. Yang Jian walked behind him, learning the paths, learning the silence. In the evenings, they drank tea. The tea was made from leaves Yuquan Zhenren grew himself in a small patch of earth near the cave, sheltered by an overhang of rock. The leaves were bitter and clean, and the tea steamed in their cups. and they drank it in silence as the snow fell outside, and the fire crackled. And Yang Jian's old anger, the bright, sharp thing he had carried up the mountain, lay quietly inside him, neither gone nor burning, like an ember banked under ash. One evening he asked, "Master, am I learning anything?" Yuquan Zhenren considered this for a long while. He sipped his tea. He set the cup down. "What did you hear today?" he asked. Yang Jian thought. "The wind in the pines, the fire, your footsteps in the snow, the water under the ice in the stream. I did not hear that before this winter." "And what did you not hear?" This was a harder question. Yang Jian sat with it. The fire popped. The wind shifted outside. "I did not hear my own thoughts," he said at last, surprised at himself. "I did not hear them shouting. They were quieter." Yuquan Zhenren nodded, a small nod, and said nothing more about it. That night, lying on his thin mat by the fire, Yang Jian thought about his mother. He had thought about her every night since he had come to the cave. But tonight, instead of the old hot rush of grief and rage, he felt something else. A long, slow ache, like a river under ice. He let it be. He did not push it away, and he did not pull it closer. He simply let it move through him, the way the water moved under the stream's frozen surface, going somewhere he could not see. Outside, the snow kept falling. The pine branches bent and lifted. The cave breathed its slow breath. And Yang Jian, who had come to this mountain to learn how to fight, fell asleep, listening to a silence that was beginning very slowly to feel like home. In the third spring, Yuquan Zhenren took Yang Jian to a flat, sun-warmed boulder on the south face of the mountain, sat him down, placed a small grey pebble in his palm, and said, "Become this." Yang Jian looked at the pebble. He looked at his master. "I do not know how, master." "Then we will begin." That was the first lesson of the 72 transformations. Yang Jian had heard of these arts, the legends of immortals who could become birds, clouds, drops of rain. And he had imagined, foolishly, that they were a kind of disguise, a clever trick, a skin one slipped into and then out of again, the way an actor wears a mask. It was not that. Yuquan Zhenren explained it slowly, over many afternoons, with the patience of someone who was not in a hurry to be understood. "To become a stone," he said, "you must not pretend to be a stone. You must stop being Yang Jian. Only when there is no Yang Jian left to insist upon himself can there be a stone where he was sitting. And then I become a stone. Then there is a stone. Whether it is you is no longer a useful question." Yang Jian thought about this for many days. He sat with the pebble in his palm. He listened to it. A pebble has very little to say, but it says it with great consistency. It is warm where the sun has touched it. It is cool where it has not. It has weight. It does not want anything. It does not fear anything. It simply is, and continues being, with a calm that is not indifference, but something deeper, a kind of trust in its own existence that Yang Jian, who had spent his whole life striving to prove his, found astonishing. After many days he began, in small flickers, to feel what the pebble felt, or rather, to feel what it did not feel. He felt the absence of his own urgency, the absence of his anger, the absence of his name. It frightened him at first. To set down his name, even for a moment, felt like a betrayal of his mother, of his sister, of the long journey that had carried him here. But Yuquan Zhenren only said, "Your name will be waiting for you when you come back. Names are very patient. Go and be a stone for a while. The stone has been waiting longer." So Yang Jian sat, and the world thinned around him, and he was very quiet. And somewhere in the long afternoon, a small thing happened that he could not afterward describe. There was no Yang Jian on the boulder for a moment. There was only sunlight and warmth and the patient weight of being. When he returned to himself, he was weeping, though not from sadness. The tears were warm and surprised him, like a spring that had been waiting under stone for a long time and had finally found a way out. Yuquan Zhenren was watching him, and his old face was soft in a way Yang Jian had not seen before. "Good," the immortal said. "That is the lesson of the stone. The rest will be easier." The next morning, Yuquan Zhenren took him to the stream and pointed at the water. "Become this," he said. The water was harder. The water did not stay still. To become water, one had to give up not only one's name, but one's shape, to be willing to be poured into whatever form was waiting. Yang Jian sat by the stream for a long time. He listened. He let the water teach him. And so the third year of his training began, not with sword or spell, but with a small grey pebble warming in a young man's palm, and the strange, soft sound of something tightly held finally letting go. After the stone came the water. After the water came the wind. To become the wind, Yang Jian had to give up the last thing he had been holding onto without knowing he was holding it. The sense of being somewhere, of being inside a body, of being a single point looking out at the world. The wind was nowhere and everywhere. It did not look at the trees. It moved through them. It did not visit the valley. It was the valley's breath. He failed at this for weeks. Then one afternoon, sitting on a high ridge with his eyes closed, he stopped trying. And in that stopping, he was no longer on the ridge. He was the long sigh moving through the pines below, lifting a hawk's feather, cooling the sweat on a farmer's neck in a village he had never seen. He was the small breath that turned a prayer flag at a roadside shrine. He was the air that filled and emptied an old woman's lungs in a thatched hut he could not have pointed to on any map. He was, for a moment, simply the moving of things, the gentle insistence of breath in the world. When he returned, he sat on the ridge for a long time, not moving, because he was afraid that if he moved, he would lose what he had just learned. "You will not lose it," said Yuquan Zhenren, who had appeared beside him as silently as he always did. "It is yours now. The wind has agreed to remember you." After the wind came the tiger. This one Yang Jian had dreaded. To become a beast was, in his mind, to become a thing of teeth and hunger. But Yuquan Zhenren only smiled. "A tiger is not a hunger," he said. "A tiger is an attention. Sit and watch one." There was a tiger on the mountain. It was old and had lived in a thicket of bamboo on the eastern slope. Yang Jian went and sat near it at a respectful distance, every morning for a month. The tiger watched him and was unimpressed. After a while, it began to ignore him entirely, which was a great compliment. He learned, sitting near the tiger, that a tiger is mostly stillness. It moves rarely, and when it moves, it has already decided. Its attention is total. It does not divide itself among many things, as a man does. It looks at one thing at a time, and the thing it looks at becomes the only thing in the world. When Yang Jian finally became the tiger, for a brief, astonishing moment one autumn afternoon, he was startled by the simplicity of it. The world narrowed and brightened. There was no past, no future. There was only the bright leaf in the wind, the small shifting of a bird in the brush, the smell of pine and earth. There was no anger in him, because there was no him to be angry. There was only the looking. When he returned, he wept again, but more quietly this time, and not from release, but from a kind of gratitude. He had not known that being a creature could be so peaceful. He had spent his life convinced that the only way to be in the world was to push against it. The tiger had shown him otherwise. He learned other forms. He became a pine tree, and for an afternoon he knew the slow conversation of roots beneath the soil, the way trees on a mountainside are never truly separate, the way they share what they have through a quiet, underground language no human ear could hear. He became a sparrow, and he knew the lightness of bones built for sky. He became a river, and he learned that a river does not arrive anywhere. It is always already arriving. Something in him, which he had not known was hard, softened. He still missed his mother. He still meant one day to free her. But the missing was no longer a fire. It was a river now. It moved through him, and it carried him forward, and he let it. In the 4th year, on an evening when the autumn light came in low through the cave mouth and turned the smoke of the small fire to thin gold ribbons, Yuquan Zhenren spoke of the third eye for the first time. He had not mentioned it before. Yang Jian had nearly forgotten it himself, or rather, had stopped noticing it, the way one stops noticing the weight of one's own hand. It was a mark on his forehead, a vertical line, faintly raised, that he had had since birth. His mother had touched it sometimes when he was small, with a soft, sad smile, but she had never explained it. His father had never spoken of it at all. That evening, Yuquan Zhenren set down his tea and looked at Yang Jian for a long moment, and then he said very quietly, "It is time we spoke of the eye." Yang Jian touched his forehead without thinking. "Master, you were born with 3 eyes, not 2. The third is not a decoration. It is not a sign of favor. It is a kind of organ, like a heart or a lung. And like a heart or a lung, it will do its work whether you understand it or not. But to use it well, you must understand. What does it do?" The old immortal considered his answer with the care of a man choosing stones to lay across a deep river. "It sees," he said, "but not in the way your other eyes see. Your other eyes see what is in front of you. The third eye sees what is. It sees past and future as easily as present. It sees what a man says and what he means. It sees the illusion the world wears and the truth beneath. It sees the threads that connect one thing to another, threads that are usually invisible, and it sees them all at once." Yang Jian was quiet. The fire shifted. "That sounds like a great power, Master." "It is a great burden," said Yuquan Zhenren. "Power and burden are often the same thing seen from different angles. The third eye is not a weapon. It is not a gift to delight you. to see everything is to be unable to look away from anything. The ones who carry such an eye are rarely happy. They are useful, they are necessary, but they are not happy. He paused, and his old eyes were kind. Your eye is already open, Yang Jian. It has always been open, a little. You just have not accepted what it shows you. That is why it has stayed dim. You have been keeping it closed from the inside. Yang Jian sat with this for a long time. He thought of all the moments in his life when he had known things without being told. When, as a small child, he had known that his mother was sad before she said a word. When, as a boy, he had known that his father would be taken before the soldiers came. When, walking up this mountain, he had felt the cave's presence before he could see it. He had thought these were ordinary things, the small intuitions any creature has. Now he was not so sure. "What should I do, Master?" "Tonight," said Yuquan Zhenren, "go to the mountain where your mother is sealed. Put your hand on the stone, and do not look away from what comes." Yang Jian rose. He bowed. He went out into the evening. The walk took him until moonrise. The mountain that held his mother, Taoshan, the Peachstone Mountain, stood pale and huge against the dark sky, and the stars wheeled slowly above it, and the wind was cool and smelled of distant snow. He climbed to a place he had visited many times before, in his old life of anger. A flat stone face, smooth and dark. He had once beaten his fists against this stone until his hands bled. Tonight, he simply pressed his palm to it, and he closed his other two eyes, and he listened, the way he had been taught to listen, with all of himself. And the stone, very softly, spoke back. It was not warmth that came first, though there was warmth. It was not light, though there was a faint, slow brightening behind his closed eyes. What came first was presence, the unmistakable sense of someone there, not a memory of someone, not a longing for someone. Someone alive on the other side of the stone. His mother. He had felt her warmth before, in the old days, when he had come here as a furious boy. He had pressed his ear to the rock and convinced himself he could feel something. And perhaps he had, though dimly, the way one feels the sun through closed shutters. But this was different. This was not a guess. This was knowing. She was there. She was alive. She was so close. The third eye, which had been a dim mark on his forehead all his life, began to warm. He did not see anything with it yet. There was no vision, no opening. But he felt it stirring, the way a sleeping creature stirs when its name is finally called. It was not a comfortable sensation. It ached. It pulled. It felt like something old and tightly closed, beginning to consider, for the first time, the possibility of opening. And then he heard her, not with his ears, with something deeper, a voice thin as a thread of silk drawn through a needle's eye, traveling somehow through the great body of the mountain, finding him because he had finally learned to be quiet enough to be found. Just his name, spoken once, in the voice he had not heard in so many years that he had begun to fear he had invented it. The exact pitch of her voice, the small particular way she had of putting the soft second syllable. Jian? As if she were calling him in from play, as if she had been calling him all along, every day, every hour of all these years, and he had only now learned to hear. He did not move. He could not have moved. His palm stayed on the stone. The tears came without permission and without sound, sliding down his face into his collar, and he did not wipe them away. "Mother?" he answered. Not aloud, not even in his mind, but in some place beneath his mind, where the listening had been taught. There was a long silence. He felt her hearing him. He felt her surprise, a soft, sudden warmth, like a candle being lit in a long, dark room. He felt her weeping, too, though differently from his weeping. Hers was older. Hers had had years to learn to be quiet. He could not answer. There was nothing in him that could form words. She did not need words. She felt him, felt the man he had become, the long lessons of the cave, the softness that had grown in him where the rage used to live. He felt her feeling these things, and he felt her relief, the deep relief of a mother who has been afraid for her child for a very long time, and is suddenly, briefly, allowed to be at peace. He stayed there for hours. They did not speak again, not in words. There was only the long, quiet presence of one another, the way two people who love each other can sit in a room together and need nothing else. The moon crossed the sky. The wind came and went. The stone beneath his palm grew warm and warmer, and then settled into a steady, gentle warmth, like a hand held in his. When dawn came, and he finally lifted his palm from the stone, his third eye was still closed. But it was no longer sleeping. It was waiting. It had work to do now. He walked back down the mountain in the first pale light. He did not feel triumphant. He felt something deeper and stranger than triumph. He felt like a son who had, after a very long absence, finally remembered who he was. It did not happen all at once. The third eye did not, as Yang Jian had imagined in his boyhood fantasies, snap open in a flash of golden light and reveal the universe to him in a single, comprehensible vision. It opened the way certain flowers open, petal by petal over days, with no announcement. It began with small things. He would be sweeping the cave and suddenly know, without turning, that Yuquan Zhenren was about to come through the entrance. He would lift a cup of tea to his mouth and taste before drinking, that it was hotter than it looked. He would think of his sister, and for an instant see her, really see her, sitting alone in a small room he did not recognize. Her hair longer than he remembered, her face thinner, a single candle burning low beside her. These small openings were sweet and bewildering and sometimes painful. The vision of his sister stayed with him for days. He did not know where the room was, or whether what he had seen was the present or a past or a possibility. He asked Yuquan Zhenren. All three, the old man said. And none. The eye does not yet know how to sort. You must learn to sort with it. Then the visions began to come in floods. He would sit down to meditate and find himself somewhere else entirely. In a marketplace he had never seen, watching a child pick a stolen plum from a basket. On a battlefield he did not recognize, smelling iron and smoke. In a quiet wood where a deer drank from a stream and lifted its head at his presence, as if it could see him too. He would come back to himself, shaken, unsure how much time had passed. He saw his father. This he had not asked for. He was lying on his mat one night, half asleep, when his third eye, which had been quiet that day, suddenly flared, and he saw a man, older than he remembered his father being, his hair white, his shoulders bent, walking along a road in a place Yang Jian did not know. The man was alone. He was carrying a small bundle. He was walking the way exiles walk, neither toward anything nor away from anything, simply walking because there was nowhere else to be. His father was alive. His father was alone. His father was carrying his grief along an empty road, and there was no one to walk beside him. Yang Jian wept. He had not let himself believe his father might be alive. He had buried him in his heart long ago, because it was easier than waiting. He saw his sister again, older now, in the same small room. She was praying. She was praying for him. She did not know if he was alive either. Then, on a night he would remember for the rest of his very long life, the eye showed him his mother's ceiling. He had not asked for this. He would not have asked for this. But the eye, learning its work, did not yet know what was kind to show and what was not. It showed everything. He saw the courtyard of his childhood home. He saw his mother lifting her face. He saw the sky open. He saw the celestial soldiers descending. He saw, terribly, her trying to shield him and his sister with her body and being pulled away from them. He saw her eyes, her last living look at her children, and the love and terror in them. And then, worse, he was inside her. He felt what she felt as the mountain closed around her. The crushing weight, the dark, the aloneness, the slow understanding that this was not death, which would have been a mercy, but something else, a long conscious dark, with no end she could see. He came back to himself, screaming. Yuquan Zhenren was there. He had been there, perhaps, the whole time. He put his old hands on Yang Jian's shoulders and held him as he shook. "Do not look away," the immortal said, quietly, firmly. "This is what the eye is for. Not to see beautiful things, to see true ones. If you look away from what is true, the eye will close again, and your mother will stay where she is." Yang Jian could not speak. He clung to his master like a child. "Breathe," said Yuquan Zhenren. "It is enough that you have seen. You do not have to fix it tonight. You only have to bear it tonight. Breathe." So Yang Jian breathed, and the old immortal sat with him until dawn, and the eye, exhausted by what it had shown, closed of itself, and Yang Jian slept at last, his face wet, his hands still trembling, his master's hand resting steady on his back, like a stone in a long river. The visions did not stop, but Yang Jian began, slowly, to learn how to live with them. Yuquan Zhenren taught him as he had taught everything else, without rushing, without explaining too much, by example and by silence, and by the small, patient comments that came in the spaces between other things. "The eye is like a window," the old immortal said one morning, as they were drawing water from the spring outside the cave. "A window in a house. The window does not choose what is outside. The world is outside. But you, the one who lives in the house, may choose to look out, or to draw the curtain, or to open the shutters wide, or to leave them only a little ajar. The eye is the same. You must learn the curtain." So Yang Jian learned the curtain. It took months. At first, the curtain was clumsy. He would try to close the eye, and instead close it too tightly, and feel a dull ache between his brows for hours. Or he would try to open it only a little, and find it flung wide, the world rushing in. But slowly, with practice, he learned. He learned that the curtain was made of breath. He learned that the eye opened most easily when he was calm, and closed most easily when he was kind to himself. He learned that fighting it never worked. Only breathing worked. He began, also, to learn what to look at. This was a different lesson. To have a window is not the same as to know where to point one's gaze. The world was very large, and the eye could see across great distances and through great depths of time. And a man could spend his whole life looking at things that did not concern him, and never accomplish a thing he came into the world to do. Look only at what serves love, Yuquan Zhenren said. Do not look out of curiosity. Do not look out of fear. Do not look to know things you have no business knowing. The eye is for protecting what you love, and for understanding what stands in its way. Anything else will exhaust you. Yang Jian, who had been tempted once or twice to look at his enemies, at the celestial bureaucracy, at the Jade Emperor's court, at the long, terrible chain of decisions that had ended with his mother sealed in a mountain, now drew the curtain on those temptations. They would come, he knew. Their time would come. For now, he looked only at the people he loved, and only briefly, and only to know that they were still alive. His father, walking. His sister, praying. His mother, breathing. Yes, breathing, inside her long stone dark. He looked too at the mountain. Taoshan. He had not understood before how complicated a mountain was. With his old eyes, a mountain was a mountain. Rock, trees, snow. With the third eye, a mountain was a vast, slow being, with arteries of water moving through it, and old roots threaded into its dark, and creatures of stone older than dragons asleep in its deep folds. And beneath Taoshan, he felt something else. Something vast, something not quite asleep. He did not press the eye to look further. Yuquan Zhenren had taught him that some things, when looked at, look back. He noted what he had felt. He filed it away. He drew the curtain. In the evenings now, he and his master sat together, as they always had. But the silences had a new quality. They were no longer the silences of a young man waiting to be taught. They were the silences of two beings who had walked similar roads and recognized each other. One evening, Yuquan Zhenren said, "You see better now." "Yes, master." "You also weep more easily." "Yes, master." The old immortal smiled. "Good. The two go together. A man who sees clearly weeps often. A man who never weeps is a man who has not yet looked at anything." Yang Jian thought about this for a long time. He thought about it as he watched the moon rise over the eastern ridge. He thought about it as he listened to the cave drip and the pines whisper, and his own heart beat its slow, patient drum. He had come to the mountain to learn to fight. He was, he realized, learning instead to look. And the looking, perhaps, was the fighting. Or rather, the fighting that mattered began only after the looking was true. He went to sleep that night with his eye gently closed, and his hand resting on his chest, and his breath slow and even, and his old anger almost entirely transmuted into something else, something quieter, deeper, and more useful. Resolve. In the 5th year, Yuquan Zhenren brought out the spear. He had kept it hidden somewhere in the cave all this time. Yang Jian had never seen it, never sensed it, though the third eye had begun by now to sense most things. The spear had been hidden by an art older than the third eye, hidden the way a master hides a gift until the child is ready, hidden patiently for the right morning. The morning came in early autumn. The first frost had just touched the high meadows. Yuquan Zhenren rose before dawn, lit a small fire at the cave mouth, and called Yang Jian to him. "Today," he said, "you will hold something." He went into the back of the cave and returned carrying a long bundle wrapped in pale silk. He laid it across his open palms and held it out. Yang Jian, who had learned by now never to grab at anything offered, simply waited. The old immortal unwrapped the silk, slowly, fold by fold, as if performing a small private ceremony. Inside was a spear. It was not large, as great weapons go. It was longer than Yang Jian was tall, but not by much, and its shaft was a pale wood that seemed to drink the firelight rather than reflect it. The head was the strange part. 3 points, not one. A central blade, long and leaf-shaped, and on either side of it a second and a third blade, shorter, curving slightly outward, so that the spear's head was a small, bright trident, the kind of weapon Yang Jian had never seen in the world of men. "It is called the three-pointed, two-edged spear," said Yuquan Zhenren. "It was made a very long time ago, by a smith who has been dust for many centuries. It has been waiting here for the one whose hands it would know." Yang Jian did not reach for it. He looked at his master. "Take it," the old man said. "It will tell you whether it knows you." Yang Jian took the spear. It was lighter than he had expected, and heavier than he had expected, both at once. It seemed to weigh nothing in his palm. And then, when he shifted it, to carry the full weight of every choice that had ever been made with it. He could feel it considering him. He could feel it remembering older hands. He stood very still and let it look. After a long moment, the spear settled into his grip the way a sleeping bird settles into a warm hand. Something in the wood eased. The 3 points caught the firelight and shone, briefly, with a soft inner gold, and then dimmed. "It knows you," said Yuquan Zhenren, and he sounded, for the first time in 5 years, very slightly pleased. They went out into the high meadow above the cave. The frost was still on the grass. Yang Jian's breath made small clouds in the air. "I will not teach you forms," the old immortal said. "Forms are for men who do not know themselves. You know yourself now. The spear will move with you. Begin." So Yang Jian began. He did not strike at anything. He simply moved, slowly at first, the way one moves through water, and the spear moved with him. He had thought he would feel clumsy. He did not. The spear was already where he wanted it to be, a moment before he wanted it. It had been waiting, perhaps, all those years in the back of the cave, learning him through the stone walls, through the small sounds of his breathing in the dark, through the slow softening of his anger into something else. He moved through the meadow. The frost crunched softly under his sandals. The pines watched. Yuquan Zhenren stood at the edge of the clearing, with his hands folded inside his sleeves, and his eyes were quiet and a little far away, as if he were remembering a meadow much like this one, very long ago, when another young person had first held a weapon under his careful gaze. When Yang Jian stopped, the sun was well up. He was not tired. The spear rested across his open palms. "Master," he said, "I do not want to use this to hurt anything." "Good," said Yuquan Zhenren. That is the first qualification of someone who should be allowed to carry one. The second qualification is to be willing, when the moment comes, to use it anyway. Are you? Yang Jian thought of his mother in the dark of the mountain. He thought of his father walking the empty road. He thought of his sister praying in her small room. Yes, he said. Then it is yours. That evening, they sat by the fire and did not speak much. The spear leaned against the wall of the cave, near Yang Jian's mat, where it would lean every night for the rest of his very long life. Outside, the first stars came out over the high peaks, and the frost deepened, and somewhere down the slope, an owl called once and was answered, and the mountain settled into its night. He came at the end of that same autumn, on a morning of low grey cloud, and he came as though he had always been coming, and as though the cave had always been expecting him. Yang Jian was outside, splitting kindling. He had been at it for a while, the axe rising and falling in a quiet rhythm, when he became aware, first with his ears, then with the third eye, of something moving up the slope below the cave. Something large, something unhurried. He set down the axe and waited. A dog came out of the mist. He was very white, whiter than snow, whiter than the cloud he had walked out of, with a faint pale luminescence to his coat that made him seem lit from inside. He was large as a small pony, with a broad chest and long, clean legs, and a tail that curled high over his back. His eyes were dark and intelligent, and entirely without fear. He stopped about 10 paces from Yang Jian, and sat down in the wet grass, and looked at him. Yang Jian looked back. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The third eye, which had become very good at telling him what things were, told him that this was not an ordinary dog. There was an old brightness about him, a celestial weight, the kind of presence that belongs to creatures who have wandered down from somewhere higher and decided, for their own reasons, not to wander back. "Hello," Yang Jian said quietly. The dog's tail moved once against the grass. Not a wag, an acknowledgement. Yuquan Zhenren came out of the cave then, drying his hands on a cloth. He saw the dog. He stopped. He looked at the dog for a long while with an expression Yang Jian could not quite read. Surprise, perhaps, and recognition, and something like a small old joy. "Ah," the old immortal said. "Yes, of course. It is time. Master, he has come for you." "For me?" "He has been looking for you, I think, for some while. He's older than he appears. He has had other companions long ago, and he has been alone for a long time between. Now he has chosen again." The dog rose then, and walked the 10 paces to Yang Jian, and sat down at his feet, and leaned gently, the great warm weight of his shoulder against Yang Jian's leg. He sighed once, a long, contented dog sigh, and rested his chin against Yang Jian's knee, and closed his eyes. Yang Jian put his hand on the white head. The fur was warm and soft, and slightly damp from the mist. Beneath his palm, he could feel the slow, heavy rhythm of the dog's breathing, and something else underneath it. A deeper, brighter heartbeat, the kind of heart that has carried a long traveler across long distances. "What is his name?" Yang Jian asked. "He will tell you in time. For now, he is here. Feed him. He has come a long way." So Yang Jian led the white dog into the cave, and gave him water in a wide bowl, and shared with him small dried meat that was meant for 2 and now would be for 3. The dog drank and ate and then lay down beside the fire as though he had always lain there and slept. Yang Jian sat with his hand resting on the dog's flank for a long time. He had not realized until that moment how much of his heart had been waiting to be given to something. The mountain had asked him for stillness. The spear had asked him for resolve. The dog asked him for nothing at all, only company. And in asking for nothing, he had been given everything Yang Jian still had to give. Outside, the mist lifted. The pines shook off their water. The mountain breathed its slow breath. And inside the cave, by the small fire, a young man with 3 eyes sat quietly beside a sleeping white hound and felt for the first time in many years the simple, unguarded happiness of not being alone. The 6th winter on the mountain came early and went quickly, the way the last winter of any long stay always seems to do, looking back. The dog, whose name Yang Jian had come to know, Xiaotian, the small one of the sky, though he was not small, followed him everywhere. He sat beside him in meditation and did not stir. He walked beside him to the spring and waited while the water was drawn. He slept against his side, a great warm bank of breathing, and Yang Jian slept more deeply for the company than he had since he was a child. The spear had become an extension of his arm. The 3rd eye had become a quiet familiar, no longer flooding him with visions, but rather sitting open, gentle and steady, behind his other 2 eyes, the way a lamp sits open in a window. He could see what was near and what was far. He could see what was true. He could draw the curtain when kindness required it, and open it when love did. One morning in the early spring, Yuquan Zhenren said, "Come." He took Yang Jian to the back of the cave, to a chamber Yang Jian had never been shown, though he had sensed it sometimes. A small round room hollowed deep into the stone, where the air was very still and smelled faintly of cold metal and old incense. In the center of the chamber, on a low altar of polished black wood, lay a set of armor. It was white, not the white of paint or cloth, but the white of moonlight on snow, the white of the inside of a shell, a white that seemed to have a faint silver moving inside it, as though the metal had been forged in some far place where the moon's light could be hammered into a wearable form. There was a breastplate. There were shoulder guards in the shape of stylized clouds. There were greaves and a belt and a long, pale outer robe with silver thread at the hem. There was a slender circlet for the brow, designed, Yang Jian saw, to leave the 3rd eye uncovered. He stood in the doorway and did not move. "It was made for you," said Yuquan Zhenren. "Long before you came to me. Long before, in a sense, you were born. Such things are made by the heavens in advance, for the ones the heavens know they will need. I have only been keeping it. Master, I put it on, slowly. Each piece is a promise. Do not put on any piece you do not mean." So Yang Jian put on the armor, slowly. He fastened the breastplate, and as the cool metal settled against his chest, he felt himself promise to protect what he loved. He fastened the shoulder guards and promised to carry what he had to carry. He bound the greaves to his shins and promised to walk, when the time came, into places it would be easier not to walk into. He drew on the pale outer robe and promised to remember mercy. He set the circlet on his brow, just above the open eye, and promised to look only at what served love. When he was done, he stood very still in the small stone room, and he was no longer quite a young man in training robes, and he was not yet quite the divine warrior the world would later know by another name. He was, for one moment, both at once, the boy who had walked up the mountain in fury 6 years before, and the being he had become by sitting still long enough to be remade. Yuquan Zhenren handed him the spear. Xiao Tian came in from the outer chamber and sat at his left side and looked up at him, and his dark eyes were calm and unsurprised. "Go to her tonight," the old immortal said. "Not to free her, not yet, only to show her. She has waited a very long time to see her son. Let her see." Yang Jian bowed very deeply to his master. When he rose, the old man's eyes were wet. Neither of them spoke of it. He walked out into the evening. The sky over the mountain was the deep blue that comes just before stars. The pines stood quiet, their tops touched with the last red of the sun. A small wind moved down the slope, smelling of snowmelt and earth, and the green things that were just beginning to remember how to grow. Xiao Tian walked at his left, his white shoulder brushing Yang Jian's leg with each long stride. The spear rode easily in Yang Jian's right hand. The 3 points pointed gently toward the ground. The armor moved with him as though it had been made for his bones, which, in a sense, it had. The path down to Tao Shan was familiar to him now. He had walked it many times in these last years, sometimes to listen, sometimes only to be near her, sometimes simply because his feet had carried him there without asking. He knew every turn of it. He knew where the stream crossed it, and where the old fallen pine lay across it, and where a small bright flower bloomed for 2 weeks in the spring, and then closed again until the next year. The moon rose as he walked. It was nearly full. It silvered the pines and the path and the white fur of the dog beside him. And when Yang Jian looked down at himself, his armor caught the moonlight and gave it back softened, the way still water gives back the moon. He came at last to the stone face on the southern slope of Tao Shan, the place where he had once beaten his fists bloody, the place where, that night in the autumn of the 4th year, his mother had spoken his name. He stopped a few paces from the stone. He did not walk up to it. He did not place his palm against it. He only stood in his armor, with his spear in his hand and his dog at his side, and he let her see him. The third eye opened wider, gently, of itself. He felt her presence on the other side of the stone, the warm, small light of her, and he felt her notice him. He felt her surprise. He felt her understanding. He felt her slowly, with the long-practiced quiet of someone who has had years to learn how to hold great feelings without breaking, take in what he had become. He did not speak. There was no need. The mountain grew warm. Not hot. Warm, the way a hand grows warm when it has been held a long time by another hand. The stone in front of him shimmered very faintly, as if something on the other side were leaning toward it. He felt her hand against the stone from within. He felt his own heart answer. He stood there for a long while. Xiao Tian sat beside him, calm and patient, his great white head lifted toward the stone, as though he too could feel the warmth. And perhaps he could. The moon climbed. The wind softened. Somewhere far below, a single night bird called and was answered and fell silent. When at last Yang Jian turned and began to walk back up the path toward the cave, the mountain was still warm behind him. It would stay warm, he knew, for the rest of the night. She had felt him. She had seen him. That was enough, for now. He walked slowly. There was no hurry. The dog walked beside him. The spear rested easy in his hand. The armor caught the moonlight and gave it back. The cave was waiting, and his master was waiting in the cave, and the fire would be banked low, and the tea would still be warm. And there would be, when he arrived, the small, quiet pleasure of taking off the armor and setting down the spear, and lying down beside a sleeping white dog, and closing all three eyes at once. Above him, the stars wheeled their slow, patient wheel. The mountain breathed, and the long night of training was, at last, almost done.
Sweet.